So question 1, what is the educational importance of the HPE learning area? Well, for me, as we learned pretty early in the semester, health is such a broad topic and it means so many different things to so many different people. And so I think it's really important for students to learn that health isn't about eat this, eat that, don't eat this, don't eat that, fat is this, fat is that. It's probably not the best message to send, and that health is very wholesome and that it relates to a lot of aspects of your life. I mean, learning HPE is such a broad area. Even the curriculum uses the 7 propositions just to break it down that little bit further, because it is so vital for students to get all the various aspects, whether it's a strengths-based approach or looking at it from a physical perspective or a mental perspective. There's just so many ways that you can take HPE, and I think that's very important for students to learn, especially when health sometimes is on the back foot in some schools in some instances. And I think it's very crucial, and this subject has taught me that it's very crucial to not think that and to actually, take the first step into really knuckling down on what health means and teaching that to students in schools. And for someone like me who didn't do health towards the end of year 12, I didn't really expect that this subject would resonate with me as much because I didn't really have that background in health. But I feel like after developing this through and kind of exploring what deeper understanding health has, I'm at university and this subject's helped me, so I feel like if you really build those foundations from an early level with the children at school and really drill into them what HPE means, what you can be capable of within that learning area, it can really develop students' understanding later in life. Especially the classes we did within our tutorial groups, I think really broadened my horizons in terms of what you can do in a health or PE class, in terms of mindfulness, in terms of interpersonal relationships. Not only looking at the physical side, but kind of making a correlation between the two and seeing how students can develop not only within themselves but within their groups or within their peers, and kind of developing that knowledge together. And I think that's a very important aspect of HPE, and another area that I think is of very high importance. I guess from here I'd like to look at kind of my own HPE classroom, and once I graduate from this degree, if I do ever get the opportunity to teach HPE, kind of how I would go about that and which steps I would take to make sure that it is inclusive and that I do give the students the most wholesome approach that I can, because I'm really passionate about that engagement, because I didn't do health in high school myself because for some reason I just thought that it would be boring or be irrelevant, but I feel like the way you go about it, it's not like that at all, and it actually can be a very rewarding subject and a very insightful subject when it's done properly. So for me, I'd like to think that once I graduate, or if I do ever get the opportunity to teach HPE, that I can really grab it by the horns and just take control and make sure that the students are very engaged and they know what's going on and they know that they can be the best that they can. Alright, so up next, question 2 is, what are some considerations when selecting and using a health education resource in your teaching? And to start off, I think if this subject's taught me anything, it's that when you use a resource in a HPE classroom, it's that it can't do the teaching for you. You need to use it as an aid to kind of help the explicit teaching that you're using, or the group work, or anything that you want to teach content-based, and then kind of using that resource to back it up, or to create an activity, or to get students to think of personal anecdotes or remedies or solutions or anything like that. And that's kind of what the main focus of a resource is. And again, like I said in my first video, engagement is really important for me. So I think a consideration I would take is ensuring that any resources I use have obviously the students' best interests at heart, but in terms of their engagement, their opportunity for group work, for interpersonal relationships, for personal development, anything like that, instead of using resources that are more dry or straightforward. Something that's more interactive would probably be better suited, obviously depending on what like we discussed in our tutorial groups. A challenge in selecting resources, as I kind of said, is ensuring that resource doesn't take over your lessons, or you're not teaching to the resource. An example we discussed in class was Harold the giraffe, and that the concern was that you kind of palm your students off and let that take over the teaching of the content, rather than you teaching the content and then using Harold as that reinforcement. So moving on from here, I guess, again, coming back to me in my future health or PE classroom that I just am picking the right resources for the right content, the right topics. I guess because some of them are more sensitive than others, some have more options and more resources than others, and some might be more limited. And so I think finding that scope and finding what's appropriate and what's best to aid the students rather than teach the students is probably where I would go. Okay, so next up, question 3 is how do students learn in, through, and about movement? Most of the information I got to answer this question came from Brown, 2013. And first up, he looked at learning in movement, and this refers to it being an experiential experience. So this includes students learning through observation, through experience in really thoughtful activities. And an example of this could be ensuring that when students are in your class, they're engaged and they're enjoying what they're doing and they're getting the most out of their lessons, and they're using the skills from those lessons in their own personal lives and making it a really knowledgeable and successful lesson. So next up we have learning through movement, and this refers to just getting students to participate in physical education, as in the active side, getting them out, getting them moving, getting them into different games. And I think an important thing to remember with this one is it doesn't have to be mainstream sports that they're participating in. It can be active play, it can be minor games, it can be more mindfulness activities such as yoga, such as Pilates. As long as they're out and they're getting physical and they're participating, I think that's very important. And last up we have learning about movement, and this more relates to a rational form of inquiry. So that means that students are active learners. They've got the explicit teaching and learning, and they've got the content, they've got the knowledge to build their own skills. They have the foundational level that they can develop on, whether it's personal, interpersonal development, development through activities, just getting them going within the class, getting them knowing the content, and I think that's also a very important aspect of class. And finally, the last question to finish off this vlog is how does your unit plan development demonstrate your proficiency in 2 of the graduate Australian professional teaching standards? Well, for me, doing this activity has definitely allowed me to develop standard 2.2, which is content selection and organisation, and also 3.2, which is to plan, structure and sequence learning programs. Obviously, these are both quite specifically referenced to the assignment. However, I also really enjoyed making this unit plan because it is so relevant to what I'll be doing when I finish teaching, especially if I go to a school where there's limited support. I'll have to be making my own lessons or my own unit plans, and I think this assignment was good because we were able to do it with a partner, and I was able to work with someone and we could collaborate, which was good because there was a good flow of ideas, but also if there was any discrepancies between our ideas, we could really explore as to why or why not it was better to go which way, and so that was very good. Going on from this, I also think that it's important to be able to recognise what activities are needed, what location is needed, what resources are needed whilst planning lessons or planning a unit. It's actually quite a really in-depth process, and doing activities like assessment tasks 2 really aids you in understanding what you need to do, what effort you need to put in to get certain tasks like creating a unit or creating a lesson done. So that was really eye-opening for me, and I think it really helped me achieve that standard. And I mean, to be honest, quite a few of the standards within this level relate to planning a sequence of lessons or a unit or just a lesson plan in general. But I feel like with these 2 specifically is important for me to develop because it's kind of an area that I'm a little bit, not nervous about, but just a bit unsure about, because at placement I haven't really had too much experience with developing a unit in comparison to developing a lesson, which is not as in-depth. So I think this is an area that I really enjoy developing, and that's why it's quite important to me, so that when I go out into the teaching profession I can hopefully make my way through my first successful unit plan thanks to this assignment.